Hey everyone, it's Crystal's Sober Onions podcast. We are here. It's November in Ventura, California. I've got my friend here, Alika, and he is in Los Angeles, not too far. So say hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you so much again for coming on the show. I know that you are super busy and you are very involved in the sober community, which is what attracted me to you. Being newly sober and having so many resources, which I did not realize there were so many social platforms and there's all these resources out there. There could always be more because everybody's different, and sobriety is so eclectic to me because you and I are sober, you and I have different times, and you and I did it differently. But at the same time, we all connect. It's amazing, these friendships that I'm forming, and we might believe differently and we might have been through something different, but for something that it just connects us, because sobriety is hard. When you have an addiction, that addiction can take your life. And so I kind of want to talk to you about that. I'm going to have you introduce yourself, a little bit about you, how long you've been sober. I know that you mentioned in your bio, which I will post in the show notes, and if you have a chance to read it, everybody, I would definitely go there. And then you're going to find Alika at his Pro Recovery Power, his nonprofit organization that he started, and he's going to tell us about that. But you will see that in the show notes. But I am curious because I do have a lot of friends who deal with addiction and they feel like their life is not valuable. And I'd like to know how you dealt with that and how you got pulled out of that. But we'll start with how long you've been sober and a little bit about you.
Okay, my name is Alika. I identify as a sober alcoholic and drug addict today. But just to kind of piggyback off what you were just talking about earlier about how, like we may have recovered differently. There's many different pathways to recovery. I got sober in a 12-step program, and that's all I was exposed to. So that's all I knew. I was ignorant to other ways of getting sober. I just didn't know. It wasn't until I went to college to work in the drug and alcohol field, I was able to obtain my degree in substance use disorder counseling. It wasn't until that happened to where my mind got opened up a lot more to the idea of, wow, there isn't just this way. There's many different ways. Something like, even though we may do things differently in our recoveries, the one thing that is a constant in every other human being I've ever talked to or I've met that identifies as an alcoholic or a drug addict is we all can absolutely agree on the solution. Our problem is what brought us together, but that's not what keeps us together. It's the solution that keeps us together. So anyways, I am born and raised in Hawaii. I'm from the Big Island, from a little town called Waimea. And I live in California now though, but I grew up, both my parents were married for 42 years. My mom passed away this year on March 16th. But yeah, thank you. And I had a good childhood. I had a lot of love, I had a lot of structure. I don't have the excuse of my mom was an alcoholic and my dad left us and we got beat up all the time. And that's why I became a drug addict and alcoholic. I initially, this is something I learned in my literature. It talked about I like the effect that it produced for me. But recently, like this year sometime, I started thinking about it. I was like, wait, initially that wasn't why. What initially did it for me was, so growing up in Hawaii, I was surrounded. I come from a humongous family. Just on my dad's side of the family alone, I have over 2,000 family members. So I grew up with a lot of cousins, a lot of uncles, aunties, plenty people. I'm very family oriented. And a lot of my cousins, my older cousins, I looked up to all of them. I wanted to be exactly like them. I would dress like them. I would make my hair like them. I would surf the places they surf. I would catch the big waves that they caught. I would try to sleep with as many girls like they did. I do all these things. I would literally try to mirror their behavior. Like I move like them. Like literally, I move like them. I will talk like them. I'll tell the same jokes they tell. I kind of bought this lie that the world tells us. And it's something like you got to look a certain way, you got to dress a certain way, you got to have a certain amount of money in your bank account, you got to have a certain amount of followers, you got to have a certain amount of tattoos, you got to sleep with all these chicks, you got to have a lot of pride, the big truck, the gold chain, all this stuff, this prestige, this power, all the respect from the men and all the love from the ladies. That's the lie I bought into. So initially what it was for me was I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be careful. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be one of the boys. That's why I started drinking in the first place. So I was 13 the first time I drank. I was 13 the first time I blacked out. I was 13 the first time I threw up. And I was 13, yeah, the first time I got drunk, basically. So 15 years old, I was introduced to drugs. And I was like, man, I can, cocaine specifically. And I was like, wow, I can drink even longer now, with this in me. And so those were like my main two drug of choices. I did pretty much everything except fentanyl, before that kind of hit the scene, I got sober. And especially in Hawaii, fentanyl, even to right now, to this day, it's not super popular in Hawaii anyway. But, as I got older, I was about 19, 20 years old. I crossed this line into full-blown drug addict and alcoholic, and I was totally unaware of it. Wasn't until I got sober and in recovery, looking back, that's about the age I was. Prior to crossing that line, I had a substance abuse problem. Well, how I can differentiate the two was when I was like 19, 20 years old, I can remember once I started drinking and once I started using, I could not stop. Prior to crossing that line, I could stop. I remember plenty of times when I stopped, on my own accord. But it wasn't until I crossed that line. And everybody I surrounded myself with. Oh, by the way, another thing, I grew up very, very introverted. I still am introverted. Anything to do with recovery, though, that I'm an extrovert on steroids. That switch goes on and that's it. But like if you catch me like, out in public, like I'm not, or even around my family, I'm not like the life of the party kind of thing. But oh, you guys want to talk about recovery? Boom, I stand up and let's do it. But if it's like, oh, this, that, just kind of reminiscing on things, I'm not, I kind of still tend to be to myself and everything like that. So anyways, now, crossing this line, I learned that addiction, and I believe addiction to be a disease, an illness that affects us like no other human sickness can. And, through chasing the drug and chasing the drink it lasted 20 years for me. Early on, I developed this certain way of thinking and these certain behaviors. I got very, very, very good at lying, at manipulating people to get what I want, and all these really terrible behaviors. I became very selfish, very self-centered, very self-seeking, self-reliant. Everything revolved around me. Super duper narcissist, control freak to the max. I held all the women in my life, I held them hostage for however long I could, basically, because I was super codependent. And I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid to be alone. So don't leave me. So I will do whatever you want. You're like, I would attempt to do whatever you want. But as soon as I start to feel like I'm losing control, then that's it. I go crazy. And I couldn't hang on to a woman to save my life. I started to progress, and I learned that this disease, it's a progressive illness over any considerable period of time. We never get worse. We never get better. We only get worse. And that is exactly what happened to me. So kind of fast forward the tape a little bit. I continued to drink and drug for years. And I'm like, man, maybe I should get off the Big Island. Maybe the Big Island, that's why all my friends around and my friends are drug dealers and I can get my dope. We're always drinking, wake up and drink. We start doing drugs and we do that day in, day out, day in, day out. Maybe it's the Big Island. So, okay, let me move to Oahu. Let me find a job. I found a job working in Waikiki as a valet. And at this point in my life, I was maybe my mid 20s to maybe like 26, 27, maybe at this time. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to kind of take a break. Maybe I'm not trying to quit. I don't really have a problem. That's why it was normal to me because everybody growing up in my early drug and alcohol use, I would hang around people that could party and drink like me. I never hung around with people that could drink and party less than me. Because if I did that, that would expose to me early on that, hey, bro, you probably get a problem. You know what I mean? Like these people are responsible. They're going home at 9 o'clock at night because they got to work the next day. I that was not normal to me. When somebody say, oh, bro, like I got to go, I work tomorrow. Like that wasn't normal. Like everybody I surrounded myself with, we partied for days. And that was normal. That was normal to me. So I was never really exposed to people just, I knew of it, but I never thought about it too much. Everybody I surrounded myself with could drink and use like me. And I continue to do that. Before you know it, I mean, I'm using in my bathroom, for days and like I'm sweating, like Hawaii is really hot. And I'm just sweating. Like I have a full on beach towel just soaking wet already, from all of my sweat. I keep wiping off. And when you're drinking and using against your will, it is no longer a party already. I experienced that in my early 20s. It was like that for me already. But like I just fighting against the thought of not drinking and using. I mean, it would just run me over like a Mack truck. Like it was a landslide victory for drugs and alcohol in my life. Um, so as I get older, keep losing women, cannot hang on to them. I use so much women for sex, for drugs, for a place to stay, for anything that my flesh wanted. I would use anybody to get what I want. And I'm at the point now where like I'm living on Oahu and I'm trying to get my life kind of back on track somewhat. And didn't take long. I mean, I was kind of patting myself on the back there, like, oh, okay, bro, you're doing good. You're not doing drugs. I'm still drinking though. I'm still going out and I'm not doing drugs. And I'm not doing drugs, and it's not by choice. It's because I don't know anybody there yet. So about
I love
about
Oahu.
yeah. So about 2 weeks to a month at working at this job in Waikiki, the bellman, apparently he's the drug dealer for the whole hotel, basically, for anybody really in Waikiki. And he came up to me and he just showed up to work. He was in the little back area where we can kind of hide from all the guests. And he said, "Oh, bro, what, Alex, you party?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, I go out once in a while." And he goes, "No, you party." He had his little fanny pack on. He busted like 1/2 ounce of cocaine. I thought he was kidding. I thought this guy is joking because he was a real funny guy. He was like a comedian. He was super funny. And he's like, "No, here, smell it." So I smelled it. I was like, "Oh, bro, you not kidding." And that was in, I believe, 2011 to 2012. And my disease progressed rapidly because he was the kind of guy. I had tips, I had money, cash every day. He knew I had it, so I would buy on 8 ball and he would front me on 8 ball because he knew I was gonna pay him back. We worked together. He knew I'm making money, and I never said no, ever, never said no. There was a couple times where I tried to sell at least $200 worth of it, so I got some money back from it. Where I still got like an 8.5 ball left, for my own personal use. And then it was just terrible nights of being in my bed. I was living with my parents in Kapolei, which is on the other side of the island. I was working in Waikiki, and like even when I was living on the Big Island, this happened throughout my whole drug use. It happened where I'm just straight tweaking it all at night in my bed. I don't want to make noise. The FBI is outside my window. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm very paranoid. I'm literally like full on slow motion, army crawling off my bed, down my bed, crawling to the door to try to look underneath to see if my parents are up. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course they're not up, but I seen something move. And that just tripped me out. And I was so paranoid. And like the whole night I'm doing that. And it was just, that's how my life was. That's exactly what my life was like. It was just a vicious cycle of torment. That's what it was. And kind of fast forward the tape a little bit more now. So my mom needed a new kidney. She was on dialysis for a year. She got a call. I literally was in Waikiki. I just did 2 lines of cocaine and she called me. And I was like, oh, I picked up the phone and she was crying. So at this time, I only had 2 lines of cocaine in me. I can actually talk. Once I did a certain amount, I couldn't talk. Yeah, I couldn't talk already. It literally was suppressed my emotions. I kind of get mad. I kind of get sad. I kind of get horny. I cannot fight. I definitely can't do that. Nothing. So I could still talk. I was still, able to do that. And so my mom got a new kidney. I had to go to their house. I picked them up. They was living in Ewa Beach. I dropped them off at the airport that night. And then I flew out, I don't know, a few days after that. And she got her kidney. I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to stay with my sister. She lives in Rancho Cucamonga. And I can go back to Hawaii. I was like, I am never going back to Hawaii because all I could see was all the people I hurt, all the drug dealers I owe money to, all the women I used, all the places I humiliated myself at. And I was like, I am never, ever going back to Hawaii. So long story short, my way of thinking, my lies, everything started compounding. It started to catch up with me finally. Because my brother and sister have been living in California for like 25 years. So they wasn't around to see me go through all this stuff in Hawaii. And but it didn't take long. It was about a month to where my lies caught up with me. And my sister, I wasn't used to this because I kept my drug use a secret from my immediate family for 20 years. You have to be good at lying in order to do that. So my sister, I wasn't used to this. she just kept pressing me and pressing me. And she just, the truth was being squeezed out of me. And finally, I mean, I told her so much lies. When the truth finally came out, she didn't even believe me already. Her and my brother showed up, and they had a plane ticket for me to go back to Hawaii. I was like, bro, I'd rather be homeless here than move back to Hawaii. And I was serious. I was not kidding. And then the truth came out, and I tried to get into treatment. My brother helped me apply for the covered California insurance because I had no insurance. And I was like, okay, I called so much different treatment centers. No, we don't got a bed. Call tomorrow, call tomorrow, call tomorrow. And like a week went by. I'm like, bro, I got to do something. I feel like I'm probably going to drink or use or do something. I don't know what to do. I'm going crazy. So I looked up 12-step meetings in my area. There was one like 2 miles down the road. I got dropped off at my first meeting. I identified as a newcomer right after that meeting. This big black guy, he beelines it right to me. He shakes my hand, he introduces himself. He bought me my book that I still got. And he gave me his phone number. And he also said, here, call this guy. And then that guy became my sponsor 4 days later. So 4 days into recovery, I got a sponsor already because they said, like, you want what we have, do what we do. I heard that. Okay, what do you guys do? Okay, they talk about sponsors a lot. Okay, I don't know what that is. What is it? What is it? Somebody gonna help me? Okay, perfect. I need that. So I understood that for my very first meeting. And so that guy became my sponsor, and he's still my sponsor, and I still meet up with him. Going on 5 years sober, I still meet up with him, even though I've completed my steps. I still, the idea of having somebody like that's close to me that knows me, like a mentor, my sponsor, somebody. I have many different mentors in my life, but my sponsor knows everything about me. He knows everything I've done wrong, everything I've done good. He knows how I think. He knows everything. He can see me from all angles. I can only see myself in one direction, really. He can see things in me that I cannot see. So there's so much value in that for me, not just staying sober, not just, but he helps me in different areas of my life as well. And he knows me so well, he can see when something's off in me. That's why I still continue to meet up with him. Something that I always have to this day, I always, and I will always seek after that he has. This man has the ability to allow me to have my own experiences. I bring something up, and even if it's not a good idea and he don't think I should do it, he never has made me not do it or not do this or not do that. If I'm gonna fall off a cliff, he's never like, oh, hey. He says, well, he let me know what his take on it was. It's my decision to make now. See, I've never felt like my free will was threatened by this man. He's never made me do anything. He's never done nothing like that.
So did you ever get into, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just curious, going back, did you ever get into a treatment center, or you just went straight to sponsorship meetings and 12 steps?
Yeah, I went straight into that.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all good.
I was curious, like my curious mind was like, wait, did he go into treatment or
not? Yeah, no, I never ended up going to treatment. Okay. And I just went into 12 steps and I met him. So like he, in my opinion, he is a sponsor the way any 12-step program defines what a sponsor is. Literally, I have friends that their sponsor will literally tell them what to do. Hey, work their steps or die. Bro, you try to tell me that, I will go die. I don't care. I was so defiant. I had bold resistance against authority. I hear you. And like, I didn't choose my sponsor. He chose me pretty much. Like, I met a man that introduced me to him, and my sponsor asked me if he wanted me to sponsor. I didn't ask him, hey, can you be my sponsor? It was the other way around. And I was like, sure. Oh, absolutely, man. I need some help. I'm dying over here. I want to get down to causes and conditions.
Yeah. Speaking of dying, I know that I read in your bio that, you almost lost your life. Is that due to your addiction, or did something else happen?
Which time is that?
Okay.
Well, no. Honestly, it's a literally a miracle that drugs and alcohol by itself didn't kill me. I'm not talking about the state of mind, the way of thinking, literally just drugs and just alcohol. I've pumped my body with so much drugs and alcohol in like days worth of time. Like probably the most cocaine I've ever done in like a period of days was about a half ounce by myself. You know what I mean? So I mean, and many times I've done stuff like this and been reckless and everything, but just drugs and alcohol by itself, it never took me out. It never did. It never killed me. But on top of that, having a certain way of thinking, being selfish, self-centered, everything's all about me, using people and hurting people. And, like nobody came back to, oh, I screwed so-and-so's sister. Now, hey, where you stay back? Coming over, let's go. Like stuff like that. Like, I believe God, all of these, I get really emotional, but I'm real passionate right now, so I might not cry. We'll see. So I get very emotional when I start talking about, oh, I can feel it. When I talk about God's mercy that he's had for me, because his grace and his mercy is not the same thing. His grace is him giving me something that I don't deserve. And his mercy is not giving me something that I do deserve. All the decisions I made, and the repercussions, the consequences of it, like it never came back to me. It never did. All these bullets with my name on it was flying at me. God stood right in the way and it all hit him, and it didn't hit me. And I'm so grateful. I'm like the most grateful human being on the planet. That's how it feels. Like that may not be the truth, but that's my reality, because I'm very connected to God now today. I mean, I never used to be hey, when I want to get out of a jam, then I go to him. Hey, bro, can you help me out? Please, I will change. I won't do this again. I promise. But those are empty promises. And God understood that. He never judged me. He never condemned me. I never did feel bad by him at all. So like that's in a nutshell just my recovery or sobriety story.
Yeah, so then
That's what it is.
you've been sober for 5 years, so now you're sober almost 5 years. So you got sober, you got a sponsor, and you're living this sober life, and then you decide that you are going to start working in sobriety and working in, because you became passionate and you went back to school. And tell me about that, because I know that I feel this way, and I know a lot of people feel this way, is you get sober and it's like, now what? Now what do I do? Because for me, like, I was a general restaurant manager for many years. So I would run super big restaurants, and I was able to drink whenever I wanted. I could go in and pour a beer off the tap and it didn't matter. I was the GM. So, I could buy shots for my kitchen guys, at the end of the night, and have 5 myself. So my drinking stemmed a lot from my career. And so when I got sober, it was like, now what do? I can't go back into the restaurant world. I mean, I'd be just setting myself up for failure. I have too many bad habits for 15 years of, drinking in that industry, and it's rampant in that industry. So, I know a lot of people feel that way, like, now what? And I know that for me, God put it on my heart to start the podcast just to kind of share, because I don't feel that I had the resources, all the times I went and Googled, am I an alcoholic? And, and so, because I was, a single mom that was successful, and I had my own dance studio and I ran restaurants. So on the outside, it looked good. And on the inside, I was destroying myself. I was poisoning myself and using it as medication. And whenever I was down low and in, at my lowest points, I would reach out to the internet and look and find nothing, and so that's kind of where my passion is like you, is like, I want to be there for people who maybe are a little sober curious, or maybe they feel like, maybe I am drinking too much, and now what do I do? For me, I got so rock bottom, I needed detox and recovery, and I had to be in residential for a month, and that was really terrible. But I needed that structure and that, sort of kick in the butt to get to where I'm at right now. But it's only been 6 months, but it's still changed my life. And so, I'm going back to school too, not for that, just for some other stuff that I used to do in my past. But I feel like people out there go, okay, well, what's next? So at what point did you feel like I could help people, and this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah. For anybody listening to this is what I believe. I believe that sobriety is not the goal. Sobriety is where life will start. I went into the rooms looking for sobriety, and I found recovery, and I learned there's a big difference between the two. And you mentioned about, one thing I didn't mention in my story was like my career. I've been an entrepreneur a long time. I was in business for myself. It was in financial services. I did it for many, many, many years. And I was pretty successful. I was making money. I was traveling all around the world. And then when I got sober, my first year, I went through 12 steps, and I went into a sober living for my first year. And I needed to pay for that place where I was living at. So there was a Chevron right up the road. I would walk to work. I got a job at Chevron. Now, I mean, off a stroke of my pen, I would make between, I don't know, $800 to like $2,000 or something like that. I was used to making money like that. Now I am traveling the world and doing all this stuff. Now I'm in California. I'm in sober living. I'm in a 12-step program. I work at Chevron. There is so much humility involved in that.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed. God knew what he was doing. I mean, cleaning toilets, checking people out, restocking shelves, cleaning the gas pumps, having somebody else tell me what to do and direct me. Because I was my own boss. Nobody tell me what to do. I never did like that idea of somebody with their thumb on me, telling me when I got to come to work, when I can leave, when I can eat, when I can take vacation, when I can leave. Me personally, I didn't. And then I think being an addict too really reinforced that that way of thinking and that being defiant and everything, Yeah. But what was meant for my harm, God took it and he turned it into good. So now getting back to your question of sobriety, I believe it's now what we do. I cannot tell anybody else what they can do or what they should do or whatever, but this is what I can tell you what I did, and it has worked. So I'm a Christian. I accepted Jesus into my life when I was 15. That's the same age I started using drugs, and I was already drinking already a lot. The seed was planted, but to be honest, I lived the way I wanted to live up until I was 33 years old. Basically, God said, "Hey," I told him about, like, leave me alone. Okay, I said yes to you. Let me just live my life now. And he said, "No problem, go ahead." He allowed me to operate in my own will. And I was like, "Yes, don't worry, I'll make you proud." And sure enough, I did the opposite.
Yeah.
And so what I have done is I have sought after God with my whole entire heart above everything and anything. I sought him first. I seek him first above any literature, any speaker I've heard, any conference I've been to, anything my sponsor has ever told me, anything and everything and anything. The number one thing I have done that has changed my life is seeking after God. That's what has changed my life. The bottom line of why I have the life I have today is my obedience to God, period. That's it. That's what I did. And because see, the Bible says, seek in Matthew 6:33, seek me first and seek him first and his righteousness, and all these things. That's everything. All these things will be given or added onto you. When I started seeking after him, the money fell into place. I met the girl. She became my girlfriend. She became my wife. Now she's the mother of my child. We've been married for a little while now. Not just that. I'm talking about having this peace that surpasses all understanding. Things that used to just stress me out don't even bother me at all. I became free of people and their opinion about me and what they think about me in the process of recovery, because my destiny is too important. People may not like me. People may not like how I do things. People may say this about me, may say that. Like, I cannot throw a rock at every dog that barks. I know who I am. I know why I'm here, and I will complete all the missions of my life, the message that God has given me to carry. That's my assignment, and I'm very focused on it. I don't care what people have to say now anymore. But I'm not kidding. It literally would keep me up at night if somebody didn't like me. Oh my goodness, that's so sad saying it out loud now. But my wife was there. I couldn't sleep. I'd have to wake up, and then she'll wake up and I'll talk to her and she'll go back to sleep, and I would stay up and feel sorry for myself. I'll watch TV and then I'll try to go back to sleep. See, that doesn't happen to me anymore because I've sought after God. I have everything that he said he would give me. He's given me. This is something I've learned too early on in recovery, that God's not a punishing God. The blessings and the curses are built directly into the decisions that we make. For some reason, that thought just didn't cross my mind. Like, all these years, I'm thinking, God, what kind of life is this? You said you don't plan for me. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. It never once crossed my mind that all of this stuff is happening to me is because of me. It's not because of him. It's because of my disobedience, period, really. And I gotta calm down, man. I get so excited.
I know. I feel the same way. I was a Christian. I grew up in a Christian home. I was a missionary for many years. Like I said, I played the guitar. I played in worship teams, sang in worship teams. And then I got lost. I went off the path because I thought that was a better lifestyle. And when I got sober and I got into detox and into rehab, and I was at my lowest point mentally, and coming back, as a Christian, yes, I was saved when I was younger, but I felt like God saved me so much from myself this time.
Yeah.
You know,
Amen.
and that is just how I feel. And I'm like, when people say like, how, you know, you get up and you take a chip and they're like, what's your name and how'd you do it? And I'm like, listen, you know, I did it because God saved me from me this time, you know,
That's
and,
right.
and that was the problem, was me. And so I am right there with you.
Yeah, that's something that I can absolutely agree upon. Because I thought drugs and alcohol was my problem. I was like, oh no. I started getting into the work and I started to suspect, oh, wait. I think I might be the problem. Sure enough, I found out, yep, I'm the problem. You know, I never had a drinking problem. It was a thinking problem that manifested into a drink problem, a drug problem, control problem, an anger problem. I'm totally unaware of that. You know, I came from my drinking, but I stayed for my thinking. That's what happened to me, you know, and renewing my mind on a daily basis. This is something I have done since day one of being sober. And I can get into full detail about that because it'll be pretty lengthy.
Well, let's talk about how you started your pro recovery power, because, you know, for me, like you know, starting the podcast was at first a little bit, you know, I thought it was going to be easy, to be honest. So I was like, oh, this is easy. I've got a great personality and I love people and I want to help. And then you got to think of a name and you got to, you know, you've got to support it. So, you know, I came up with Sober Onions mostly because it's peeling back the layers of sobriety. And I wanted it to be alcohol, but I also wanted it to be drugs, and because I was surrounded by that as well. And, you know, I cried a lot, you know, I cried to God a lot. I found myself at the end of my addiction. I mean, I always have my addiction. It's always there. But at the end of my using, you know, I was always in the shower for some reason. I don't know why, but I was just always in the shower crying, like, so no one could hear me or something. And, you know, just asking God, like, to help me, and like, I just begging, you know, and feeling, my biggest feeling was, nobody would care if I was here or not. You know, like if I, not that I would ever kill myself. I never had those types of thoughts, but I thought, what if I moved to Italy and disappeared? No one would care. You know, I really just felt like I didn't matter. And I know I did, but my addiction was controlling me, because I would not show up to work, or I was, speaking of sweats, I was literally at the end, I was working, I went from running restaurants, I would take breaks every once in a while because it was so stressful. So I would just bartend or waitress because I like just making the money and not having all the responsibility. And so I was waitressing at a friend's restaurant, and I was literally taking an order, and I had sweat dripping down my arm as I was writing their order, and I'm dripping sweat down my face. And this lady's like, "Are you okay?" You know, like, you're sweating, like literally. And I'm thinking, I just need a drink. If I just had like a little mini shot, I'd be golden. But I couldn't. I was in the middle of work, right? And I just thought, oh, you know, I'm 40, it's menopause, you know, and I'm dripping sweat. And so I mean, that I started noticing like my addiction was just coming out of my pores. And so, you know, that was humiliating. And so I was just at the end, it was just so much was happening and I felt so low. And so that was kind of why I came up with the crying with the Sober Onions. But how did you come up with the pro recovery power? And also in your logo, I see that you've got like fists. What do those mean? I'm curious.
Yeah, okay. So how Pro Recovery Power started was in the middle of the pandemic last year. I started thinking, man, how can I still be of service to other people? Because things was locked down. Like at a certain point, you know, like you couldn't even leave your house, like go grocery shopping if there's groceries at the store, you know, at that point. So I was thinking, man, how can I do that? Like how, like I started to think about somebody other than myself, you know, that's something recovery taught me how to think about you more than me. And so I said, okay, let me do this. I'll create a page on Instagram, a separate one geared toward recovery. And that's what I did. And I started thinking, okay, what am I going to name it? And I was like, okay, I got it. Pro Recovery Power was the first name that entered my mind, and I stuck with it because I'm much more pro recovery and I'm less anti-addiction. Being anti-addiction is problem focused, but I'm much more solution oriented today. And you know, there is a lot of power in that too. So in my logo, in the first P, this radio, a lot of people don't know what it is. If you're from Hawaii, you know what this is. It's the big island of Hawaii. It's where I'm from. That's why.
That's
And then
awesome.
there's the fist for power.
Power.
So what this symbolizes, it symbolizes where I'm from and what I stand for. That's what it symbolizes. And I have it tattooed on me as well. So I mean, that's how it started. And it didn't start off as a nonprofit. That's how it started. Then I started thinking to myself, oh, I got this platform now. For over a year, I've been doing this. I've been going live with other addicts, other alcoholics, telling their story because it inspires hope. To me personally, it doesn't matter how somebody got sober. Therapy, 12 steps, treatment, God snapped his fingers, or whatever. It inspires hope. And I think people need hope now more than ever when it comes to drugs and alcohol, especially. So I started doing that, and I was consistent in doing it. I did it 1 year. For the first year straight, I did it every weekend on Saturday and Sunday at 3 o'clock. And then it started to disrupt my marriage because I'm so busy. I get my clients, the sponsees, I get this, I get that, all these things going on, meetings. And so there was no family time. Like I was present, but my presence never made me present, basically. So my wife said, look, why don't you just do it on pick a day, Saturday or Sunday? I said, okay, I'll start doing it on Saturdays. So I started just doing it on Saturdays at noon and at 3 p.m. So I can free up the Sunday for family time, just specifically. And so I started doing that. Then I started create a YouTube page. I created recovery clothing line. I created a website. I started to host recovery meetings through Zoom on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. And I started doing panels in my area locally. And then I became a nonprofit. I mean, it's a process to become a nonprofit. If anybody has done it, it's a lengthy process. So, I mean, we became a nonprofit probably like 3 months ago. We were like been a nonprofit. And, as a nonprofit, we're committed to helping those who have been afflicted by the disease of addiction. Like we just had a fundraiser a couple weeks ago in Anaheim. But there's more to it. Like that's what God put on my heart to start this. And that's what I did. And because I can give my time, I can help, I can sponsor. I've done that, like walk people through the steps, things like that. But being a nonprofit, I can reach people that I couldn't reach by myself. Now I got more resources. And money, it's a great tool, but it makes an awful God. But money is very helpful because what we do as a nonprofit, we do different things. Like we're doing a toy drive next month for kids that have been affected by addiction, like their parents or family member or something like that in the home. Other things like financially supporting people who have gone through that too, or is going through that, sponsoring people through treatment. Now, you've been through treatment. I worked in treatment, and it's not cheap. It is super expensive, and these are, we can scholarship people to go through it. When we have our own treatment center, we can scholarship people to go through ours as well. Many different ways to help people. It's not just, well, we're gonna just carry the message to them. Of course, we're doing that because like sober events, like people, like I still do all these things. I still attend these things, like these sober events. It's like a huge party, but then nobody's high, nobody's drunk. Nobody's trying to, well, I shouldn't say that. I say maybe people are trying to sleep around with each other still. That's probably still going on. That probably is. But like there's nobody that's trying to like get something from somebody, like being selfish and things like that necessarily. And by doing things like that, I mean, we're showing the public, we're showing the community, look, you can still have fun and be sober. Like we're being in the examples for people to follow. And I take that personally. I take that super serious. I do my very absolute best to live my life like somebody that's trying to get sober right now is always watching me. See, I came into recovery as a character, but now today I have character because of the work that I have done. And my wife knows this about me. I take this so serious. Like I am the same in public that I am in my home. I'm exactly the same person. I never used to be like that. I couldn't say that before, about myself. See, but today I can, and it was through the process of recovery. I mean, that was a big part of it. God, when I talk about God, and when I talk about recovery, I really am talking about God, because I say God is not in recovery. Recovery is in God. And there's one page in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It talks about, it's in the chapter 2, the agnostic. that there's one sentence in that page, in that chapter, that sums up the whole entire any 12-step program for me, really. It says this book will enable you to find a power greater than yourself that will solve your problem. And like, period, your problem, period. Not the steps will solve it, the people will solve it, the group will solve it, whatever. A power greater than yourself, which I choose to call God, because for me, you take God out of it, then he don't work. Like you ever heard of smart recovery? Your smart recovery has no God in it. My mind is open to it. I get it. But there's absolutely no way I would have recovered doing that, because I was far beyond human aid. God needed to intervene in my life, and he did. When I was ready, he was always there. I said, okay, finally, bro, I give up. I'm ready now. I surrender. And I learned the definition, a new one recently, about surrender. And surrender means join the winning team. Because, you ain't winning if you're losing. And I was losing big time, man. So, that's how PRP started. And I just got off the phone right before I jumped on here with another guy he had his own nonprofit for years. He would do huge events, and he wanted to collaborate with me and another guy that we know. So we're going to have a meeting next week, Tuesday, to start, planning different things and brainstorming ideas. God's amazing. He opened so much different doors for me, but all of this, don't get me wrong. It's not because I'm so great. It's because of my obedience to God. Like, period. And in everything I do, with my money, with my wife, with my recovery, with people, like, obedience across the board is the reason why I have the life I have today.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that too. It's like even in recovery right now, in the church that I go to, I love how they do this now. They do series. Before, when I was younger, you would just go to church and like they would preach. And now it's like, hey, we're gonna do a series. So you need to be here the next 5 weeks, or you're not gonna know what we're talking about. And I love that, because I'm like, okay, I need to know what's happening next. And and the series we're doing is called drifting, and it's so easy to drift away from God, and it's so easy even in recovery to drift away from recovery. And it's, I posted something on my Instagram the other day that, recovery never gets a day off. You're constantly, having to work your recovery. And so it's programs like yours that we need. People need this. We need structure. We need, it's just like everything else out in the world. You have people out there planning stuff for alcohol, you have people out there planning stuff for every event, and there's also a huge community of people who need programs to depend on, because we're sober and we need guidance. We need those programs to be out there, and we need that information. We need a place to go. We need, there's some people who need recovery. There's people that need events. There's people that need all this stuff, and everybody is different. And I commend you for putting together and following your heart and following what God has brought you to do. I have really enjoyed this interview. I heard about you. So it's funny, because when you get into this whole like sober entrepreneur / influencer thing that this is, and everyone was like, oh, have you heard of Alika? I'm like, what? Who's Alika?
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to find out. So I hear you're doing really good things, and that's great, because people need it. I need it. I'm new. I'm 6 months. There's people that listen to this podcast. I can't even believe it. I mean, like, I've had the podcast for like 2.5 months, and it's hit over 1,000 downloads. And I'm like, what? This is crazy, So
Yeah.
people are listening, and they want to hear it. And so I really appreciate your time and explaining things to me. And you had a lot of words of wisdom. I took a lot of notes, actually. So I'm excited to hear the things that you had to say, about having hope, and just that, recovery is a solution, and we're addicted by affliction, and, recovery is in God. That's huge to me. And I just, all the things that you were saying just really hit me, that we're really focused. Getting sober is the first step, but recovery is, what our lifestyle is. And that is, relating to each other and moving on with that. So with that, did you have any questions for me or anything? Or are you, anything else you want?
I mean, not really. Like, actually, I had one, but you already answered it. I was going to ask you about the reason behind Sober Onion.
Yes.
But you answered that already. Yeah. That was actually the
Sober
only question I
onions.
had.
I have a lot of
Yeah.
people that are like that ask me that. So I try to explain because it's like, why sober onions? In the logo, it's a martini glass with the
Yeah.
onion in it, but
Yeah.
there's no liquid. So
Yeah.
it's a real dry
I was
martini.
thinking, like, is she in the culinary field? Is that why? Like, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, I was for
Mm.
sure. I was in the industry for a long time, so now I'm moving out of that and going into a different direction. I damaged my nerves from alcohol big time.
Mm-hmm.
I have severe peripheral neuropathy in my feet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I thought that I was just having some tingling in my feet because I work so hard,
Mm-hmm.
and actually people don't realize, like you said, how you can't believe you didn't die just from all the drugs and alcohol you were putting into your body. I mean, it's a miracle, but God
Yeah.
knew that he had plans for you and he had plans
Mm-hmm.
for me and he has plans for the person listening to this right now.
That's
And,
right.
I just want to say thank you so much. And I will put everything in the show notes. You'll be able to find Alika and you'll be able to find Pro Recovery Power, and you can find them on Instagram and YouTube. And we will put at your next event up. We definitely will promote that for you because and you're not too far from me. So maybe we will see each other soon. I'm very excited
Yeah.
about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All
much.
right. So thank you so much. And with that, this is Crystal. And if you guys want to go to the website and you want to click on sponsor or donate, you can pick patron and donate to the show. It's paypalme.com/soberonions. And remember, if I can do it, we can do it. Thanks so much, everyone.